Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Enhance Your World show. I am your co host, Chris Alba, and with me always is Larkin.
Welcome.
And today we're going to talk about the magic of letting go. Larkin, would you like to get us started on this?
Sure. Well, I'm on a roll, guys, with this today because we had Susie and I on Angels in Action yesterday. We had people asking about how to let go. And so then it came up in my later live yesterday, and I was like, okay, so let's talk about that today because obviously it's a big part of our lives. It's something we cannot avoid, right? It's something we either do by choice, which oftentimes we put off because it's uncomfortable. We don't like change, or, life forces us into letting go, right? Like when we lose someone, or we have a breakup, or something happens to our house or our car, or whatever the case may be. So, people were asking yesterday how to let go. And, I think that's a very personal answer. I think that it's something we each have to develop in a journey. But there are basic tools that can help with it. And one of those I think is having a healthy idea of what letting go really is. And we live in a world where we identify, everything's like ass backwards, right? We identify losing, or someone going away, or not being first, or not getting that job interview, or whatever the case may be, not winning or not getting something for free, or all these things we identify as losing, as a loss. And when we're raised to believe that if we're given something, or we win it for free, or we are first in line, or we gain a relationship, or we buy or gain an item, or we get a new house, or we get more food, whatever the case may be, it's always the getting and receiving we see as positive, and the losing, or I don't know, having things taken away, or things change, or a loss of something, we identify that as negative. And so we'll say, well, I'm depressed, or I'm down, or I'm really bummed out, or I'm having a bad day because I lost this, or I didn't get that. But as soon as we get something, we think, oh, I'm winning, everything's good. And then you might say to somebody, why do you seem so happy today? And they'll say, well, because I won this, because I got such and such. So I ask you to think for a moment, where is it that we identify gaining and receiving, or winning, as better? Now you're going to go, well, duh, Larkin, as better than loss, or losing something, or getting rid of something, or saying no to something. Okay, because this is a huge part of our lives, and what we allow to determine our mood, our attitude, if we forgive or not. All right. And really what we need to do, that a lot of very more conscientious cultures, and even just ways of living, like Buddhism, for example, or, the Native American cultures, there's so many throughout history, that saw this all as one big picture, right? Like the yin and yang. When you begin to see and recognize through life experience that every time you win, or you buy something, or you're given something, or you gain something, there's always the opposite energy. The whole point of living in a world of contrast, as Abraham Hicks talks about it, is that there's always two sides to the coin. So whenever you get something that you want, there's also the opposite energy. If someone gives you something, let's say I give you a free reading, there's always the energy exchange. So if you're not paying for that reading, where is that coming from? Somewhere there's the energy exchange. If you win the lottery, somewhere there's the energy exchange. If you're cleaning out your house and you're getting rid of items, in the giving away of the items, you are gaining space and energy for something new to come in. You're allowing something new to come in. Okay. So please understand that when you shift your perspective from letting go as being a negative, having to let go, that's how we look at it, right? Having to let go. When you change that and view it instead as half of a whole, where every time you feel that you're having to let go, you're also creating space for something new. You cannot ever let go of something or lose something without something else coming and taking its place. That's just how life is. It's a law of living, and there's nothing we can do about it. So if we're talking about intentionally letting go, that's always a wiser choice than waiting until life forces us. And I can't tell you how many times I've had that life experience. I'm not going to share it right now because I don't want to go on too long here. I want to give Chris a chance to do an intro too. But we will get into our stories and examples about that today. But I think keep in mind as we move forward, whether you're watching us live or on the rebroadcast, that letting go is a powerful tool. And when you wait and you avoid it and you wait for life to throw it on you, it will always cause struggle and suffering, and it will always be more difficult. But when you know it is your choice and you have that intention and you understand that it's the other half of the things that you're wanting to create, change, and manifest, then it takes on a new meaning, but it takes time to teach yourself that new meaning. Chris, over to you.
All right. I think your intro and what you shared was perfect. As you're sharing that, I can think of, major redirections in my life coming from, those losses, and whether it was, in business, whether it was in my personal life, whether it was in my romantic life, whatever. And yeah, I mean, I even have a friend right now that's going through a divorce, and we were talking about it, and she said, the hard part for me is he chose. I thought we were working on this thing. I thought we were trying to work and work on our marriage, and we were putting the energy in, and everything was getting better than it was. And, so this just pulled the rug out from underneath of me, because there wasn't a discussion. There wasn't any communication around it. And I think that because, in previous podcasts, I've even talked about, you don't want to give in, you don't want to give up. But there does sometimes get to a point to where you're like, okay, I'm wasting my energy, hanging on to this, old condition. And if I let go of the emotional attachment to it, or the thought of how it's supposed to be, that's not currently here, then there's an opportunity for things to realign. People come and go out of our lives, and it's been my experience that when we can let someone go, harmoniously and in love, the chances of you being able to reconnect later in life are greater than if you continue to grasp and fight for something that someone else isn't willing to fight for. So, from my perspective anyway, there's definitely, a time to stand, because, the one fear that I have with everyone saying detachment, let go, and, if it's difficult, let go, is people are going to start using that as a way to spiritual bypass challenge and accountability, and a level of responsibility for the parts that they're playing in the situation, especially when it comes down to human relationships. One of the personal stories that I have shared throughout the years, that made a big impact in my life was I was a drug addict. I was involved in the adult industry. I promoted nightclubs, drank, partied, made a lot of money, had a lot of fun, and I thought I had arrived because, I was hanging out with the people that most people would just, they spend $100 to just be able to shake their hand. These were my friends, and these are who I was spending my time with. So I thought, oh, I've reached what society considers success, but I was an addict. You know, I had all these things in my life that were not, you know, in my best interest. And one night, my wife and I were down the street at a friend's house, less than a mile away, and our house got robbed. And at that time, I was going to school because I was trying to change myself, right? I was trying to learn some new skill sets. And when I got robbed, it basically made it impossible for me at the time to continue going to networking school because I had to have a network at home to be able to do this stuff on to do my work. And that completely changed the direction of my life. And I remember sitting in the cop car, and you know, the only two things that weren't really stolen of any value was my camera and a pistol. And they missed the camera because when they kicked the door, or I guess opened the door, got the door open, the door opened up and it blocked the camera. But the pistol they didn't want to take because the cop said, you know, that would make them have to investigate it more. You know, and if it's just stuff, then it's not that big of a deal. But if there's firearms involved in that kind of thing, then they tend to want to go after those weapons. But I remember sitting in a cop car with the detective the next day, and I was like, and I wasn't spiritual at the time at all, but I was just like, I remember looking at him and saying, this is karma. You know, this is karma. You know, I've been living very selfishly. I've been living very materialistically. I've been living in these ways, and it wasn't in my highest well-being. So I took that opportunity to get sober, to go in a new direction. You know, I left the adult industry and the nightclub industry and went towards mainstream entertainment. And you know, that led me, you know, down the path a little bit farther. And those who know my story, eventually led me to own a bar nightclub, which again, because of the associations that I had and the people that I chose to start that business with, they were doing some things that were illegal and they ended up going to jail, but that ended that business. That landed me here, you know, through a divorce, through all the different things, landed me here. And if those things hadn't have happened and I closed my heart, I closed my mind to the possibility of forgiving and moving on and letting go and surrendering and using these things as a leverage point to go to a new level of my own holistic well-being, I wouldn't be here today. But it is a process that has to come from within. No one can tell us to let go. In fact, it's like the worst advice anyone could give anyone when they're going through a tough time is just let it go. You know, like move on. Like it's been a year. Well, why are you still hanging on to that? You know, like those types of things are very harmful to our spirit, especially when we're looking to get our footing and start to build our level of empowerment back. And what can even happen then is you take the person that maybe you separated from and you turn them into this monster or turn them into somebody that wasn't loving, kind, whatever, because you were with them. You chose to be with them, but maybe things were a little out of alignment. So then you create this new archetype character of this person so you can, you know, have something to fight against, you know, and raise yourself above. And, you know, this is where I think the subconscious patterns come out of our past and trying to put our ego above someone else's ego, maybe avoid some accountability, responsibility. So, you know, there is magic to letting go when life happens in a way that's beyond your control. But when there's still influence that we have, still things that we can put our energy towards to heal and grow. I feel like just throwing the towel up and walking away isn't as beneficial. I know if I would have done that to my family, all those years where I thought that, they didn't love me in the way that I wanted to be loved. They didn't accept me the way I wanted to be accepted, all those things. I mean, even this morning I was being told, I'm doing things wrong, and I said, thank you for your perspective, but this is my life and I'm doing it the way that it feels right to me. But that again is another example of letting go of someone having power over me or trying to live up to someone else's expectation, and learning to really stay in what's in my heart, and what it keeps me moving towards, my highest path in relation and service to everything beyond it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good point about, the different, how people can use letting go.
Mm-hmm.
I know for myself, I mean, obviously when I am, this is something major that my clients have always gone through, is letting go. And it does happen that people misuse what we're talking about. I find for the most part that often people don't get that far. And then if they misuse it, it's prior to them even doing the letting go that they need to. And I think that's something that we should define a little more, since you brought that up, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I think obviously Chris and I are not saying, use it as an excuse to not be accountable. We're not saying that. We're not saying, force a letting go just because you don't want to deal with something. We're not saying any of that. For me personally, I'm referring to letting go in really more healthy ways that are about creating space.
Mm-hmm.
And always, there is that risk, of course, for some people of using it to not take responsibility. But I have found that people mostly, if they misuse letting go, they're also not really letting go of the right things.
Right.
They're if they're throwing the towel up and saying, well, that's fine, I'm just going to let go of, our friendship or our relationship because you're not doing things my way. It's not worth doing it the way I want, so I'm letting go. First of all, I would say, fine, you know what? Let them do that, because maybe that then isn't a right match for the person that they're leaving. Maybe
right.
that gives the person they're leaving a better opportunity. So good riddance. Let them go.
Right.
If it was something that I was coaching, what I find is that we have a tendency to, if we do that, if we misuse letting go and use it as an excuse not to be responsible or not to do what we should be doing, I find that there are usually other things lacking that we have not yet let go of. Perhaps it is maybe we're throwing the towel in and we're not letting go, or we're letting go when really we should be working through something with someone because we haven't let go of something in the past, or
right.
because we haven't let go of a fear we have, or because we're unwilling to let go of a habit.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes I've seen, working with a lot of people that are dealing with death and people who have crossed over and things like that, I find a lot of times people have trouble letting go of a loved one that have crossed over, or an animal that's crossed over, or an old relationship. However, they're unwilling to let go of what they need to heal. They're unwilling to let go of their identity that they had with that person that is now gone.
Right.
So, guys, there's so many different levels of this. And I always advise journaling and getting clear about this for yourself, because all of us have to have an element of letting go. And it's because that is the natural flow of life. Life is always, the birth and death cycle. It is always the beginning and the end cycle. For every sentient being, for every rock, for every molecule, this is how it works. So when you get on the bandwagon with understanding it is a way of life, and you learn to gracefully make it a way of life. And as Chris and I were talking about, choosing, where is the powerful place for you to choose letting go? One of my examples is, with relationships. I was never the one that would throw in the towel. I would not. I'm very tenacious. I wouldn't give up no matter what. I always was optimistic and hopeful, and there were several times I had to go through this hard lesson of learning that, in a couple of the cases, had I just let go and walked away, that person would have followed me and our relationship would have had a different dynamic. Mm-hmm. But instead, I was so determined to fix them, to help them, to sort everything else that was keeping us, apart and causing problems, to work together as a team and get in the same boat. Like, that's fine. But sometimes you have to walk away or let go in order to let maybe even the same circumstances or different circumstances with that same person take on a new tone, have a new life, And so there are times where I had the signs. There was one relationship years before. I had intuitive signs. I had angelic signs. I had tangible signs. I had, spirit guide signs. I mean, I knew in my heart that this relationship was meant to be for a certain amount of time, but it was not going to be able to last. And I wanted it so badly that I could not make myself let go. And so it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until there was no stopping it. I mean, it just exploded. Mm-hmm. And by then, it took, I don't know how long it took him. It took me over 10 years to recover. Financially, mentally, emotionally, relationship wise, where I was going to live, what I was going to do with my job. I mean, we had all the same friends. So it wasn't just an 8-year relationship and then 10 years. That was 20 years of my life wiped. If I had let go when I knew I had a choice, and I knew with every ounce of my being that that's what needed to happen, it would have been different. But because we both held on that long, that was literally 18 to 20 years of our lives, if not more, that was spent just dealing with and recovering from that. Mm-hmm. And the lesson there, which I kind of learned at that point, but not really. The lesson there was, when you do know there's things you need to let go of, maybe it's a job, maybe it's an eating habit. When you do know, make the choice intentionally, or you'll drag out the time. And then when life forces it on you, it's a lot more painful. It causes a lot more struggle and suffering. Mm-hmm. That's very different, though, audience, than you using it as an excuse, like people use money as an excuse or other things as an excuse, right? So just be very careful that you guys aren't, that you're taking the warnings Chris threw out there. Make sure you're really doing it authentically and you're listening to your intuition, and it's not just an escape for something else. I think for most of you, it probably isn't. In those circumstances, I don't even know that I'd call it letting go. I think I would just call it avoiding responsibility. But be careful of that line.
Right.
Important. Yeah.
Well, and it's been in my experience. I mean, even in my 22-year marriage, to know when it is time to let go of a relationship, both people know it. Whether they're willing to admit it or not, it's in the energy, and that's the hard part to teach, right? Because it's in the experience. At Sundance this week, it was great. The chief was getting ready to speak, and they asked him a question, and he said, "Well, I've read this in a book." And then I've had my own experiences. So, and that's kind of the challenge of these podcasts and, all these other things, right? is we create this cognitive nugget. I like to call them mind candies, right? Things to think about, things to hold on and to contemplate on. If our reality is based on our mentality, then we're gonna mentalize things. But the whole truth is the experience, and if it's just not there, if everything that you're doing isn't working, then it's just going to be a natural falling away of things. When I have quit addictions, 20 years deep now, they just fell away. It wasn't a struggle, but what I did was I focused on the part of the benefit, what I was going to be, how I was going to feel different, how I was going to have more of this or feel better of this or that or the other. And so it just naturally shed away. And even in our relationships, when we let go of the expectations of how someone else is supposed to be, and then just focus on our own way of being, then those little things that challenge us aren't really a challenge anymore, because it's something that we're willing to accept. And I think that's a great reflection of love. If we truly care and love somebody, we want to nurture and guide them with compassion rather than condemn them and criticize them. Because again, it's in the vibration, it's in the frequency of how we're communicating, how we're acting, that's going to help somebody up or help push them back down into the depths of despair. Because it's all energy, it's meaningless till we give it meaning. So some people can take this awareness, like you were saying, and use it towards the good and towards the light and moving into higher vibrations, and then the other people can use it as a way to keep themselves from really having to look at the mirror and say, oh, I've had all these failed relationships and the common denominator is me. So maybe it's not the other people.
That's powerful. But I don't want you guys to mix that up with letting go.
Right.
Letting go is really, it's the easiest thing you can do. And there's so many other levels to that. Letting go is literally like, just that. So let's say we're talking about you're having trouble letting go of a relationship. Maybe someone left or passed away or divorced you, or maybe someone passed away, or you lost a pet. Maybe you lost a job you love. Maybe like me, I had to leave a boarding facility. The whole boarding facility is closing down now. That was unbearable, right? You have to let go. You get used to the people there and the horses, and it's like family. You get used to taking care of them. Letting go. This is the easiest thing. Why is it so hard for me to open my hands and let go? The only reason is because of this. Mm-hmm. This is the only reason. The only thing that stops this from doing this is this. So I have my reasons. I don't want it to break. I don't want it to spill. I want to put it on. I don't want someone else to grab it. I don't, whatever the heck it is, I have a reason for holding on, right? And when we hold on so tightly to things, it's like they will slip away. If you try to hold water or any type of liquid, what happens? It just runs down your arm and out through your fingers, and you open your hands and you've got nothing. If you can hold something, you just practice letting go. I mean, if I would do that right now, if I were you guys, just pick something up and go like that. The reason it's hard is because it's so easy. And life is actually a series of letting go. Letting go of who you were when you were a kid, letting go of who you were yesterday.
Right.
If you wake up with anxiety, and you can wake up and be someone new and fresh each day, like 50 first dates, then you don't have a problem, do you? But if you wake up and you think about the people you haven't gotten back to yet, the bills you have to pay, the emails that you might have, The things you didn't do yesterday, you have to do. The things you were stressed out yesterday that you're going to have to do. The things you're afraid that you have to set up for tomorrow. Where are you? You're outside of the present. You are in your head. You're in the future. You're in the past. You're everywhere but in the present, because your egoic mind is always in the past or the future. So how do we let go? We just let go. And what most people do is, when we have to let go, and I'm not talking relationships or any of this complex stuff we've been talking about. Let's just talk about just letting go. You lost somebody, you lost something, or you have to choose to move. Whatever it is, let's not get caught up in the dilemma of the decision. Let's just talk about the letting go part, because that's so hard for us. It causes us so much struggling and suffering. This is the process that you guys have to formulate a system for yourself, but there are consistent principles about it. It will happen no matter what, because it's part of life. You can't avoid it. Okay. Let's say that somebody passed away and you're going to have to move out of that house. You're going to have to clean out their things. That is something where it's a forced situation, but you're also having to choose. Is it better to drag it out for the next 3 months that you're going to be living there? Or is it better to get it over with and move forward? How do you work? It's always scary before you do it, but once you do it, it's a different story. On the other side of letting go is space. Is the faith of, if it's meant to come back to you, it will. Is the opportunity to know that there's life on the other side of these things. So if we go back to my initial premise that we collectively and individually, because of our egoic minds, we dislike losing, we like gaining. We dislike giving away or getting rid of or cleaning out, and we like acquiring. We want to get more, not less. We want to win, not lose. All these things are the contrast, right? So if instead you live a little bit more in balance, and you understand, for a lot of my clients, is, why am I not able to manifest? Why have I not been able to manifest the type of relationship I want, or more money, or a job I like, or feeling better about myself? Always within that is an element of things you have not let go of. Habits, beliefs, habits and patterns, okay? Ideas that you have about yourself and other people. The little habits you do each and every day, guys. And a big part of that is letting go. If you haven't let go of the identity and the person that you were when you had that last relationship that was so miserable, how do you think you're going to be creating space for a new and different relationship? This isn't just letting go outside of you. This is letting go within you too. Mm-hmm. If you haven't let go of maybe the resentment you have towards yourself or someone else, how are you going to move on? If you haven't let go of your limiting beliefs about how stupid or smart you are and what kind of a job you have and how much money you can have, how are you going to create more abundance? Okay, so use the whole spectrum, guys, for yourself. It's your path. Use the whole spectrum and investigate these things. Where within you, in your mind, in your emotions, in your outer life, in your relationship, in your work, in your abundance, where are you not creating space? Where are you holding on to old baggage and not letting that energy go? Because everything is energy. And it starts there. And for most of us, we go on with our lives and we don't even notice the habits. And then we wake up 7, 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road and we're like, how did I get here? Why has nothing changed? Okay. And this is one of the major reasons why, which is why I titled it The Magic of Letting Go. When you start to let go, things get lighter, they get simplified, and new things can come into your life, even if that's new things with the same job or the same person or, the same lifestyle. You have to change your habits in order for changes and transformations to happen in your life. And that was at least my premise in doing this about letting go, because I think it's something we forget to do. We're so busy gaining and grabbing and adding. But when do we simplify and clear out? When do we let go of what's unnecessary, like the crap I have in my office right now that I haven't made time to clean out so I can work in a clean, peaceful space? See, there's all a connection there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know, even the anxiety of we have to always be doing something, you know, to really be able to sit and not do anything and realize that the world's going to go on without us, is a powerful teaching.
It goes on and it goes by, right?
What's that?
It goes on and it goes by. Life keeps going whether we're putting it on pause or not.
Right. Like, you know, and the only one that maybe not living up to their whatever is us, because of the identity we have, that we deserve to be treated better, or we deserve more than what we have, or whatever. And then we're just like a toddler in the you know, supermarket. You know, and I've been that person. I know I have, and I'll fully admit it, you know. And that's the beauty of having the experience, because you can understand why people can go through that, you know, can be there, because we've been there ourselves. And the more we can say, you know what's meant to be will be. That's faith. I can't know, because if I know, then that's not faith, that's belief. And if I'm coming from a place of belief, then I'm coming from a limited perspective, than being open to the ultimate realities. And then there's just that time where it's okay, you know, it's enough. You know, and like you said earlier, we can choose consciously to shift, or we can wait for life to happen for us to make us do that. Whether that's develop a disease, whether that's a robbery, whether that's, you know, all that stuff. Now, the time that I used for that robbery, my lifestyle was what it was. The other people that got robbed in the neighborhood, they didn't live that lifestyle. They still got robbed, you know. And what was going on was there was a bunch of people in the neighborhood that were heroin addicts, so they were robbing their neighbors because they had an addiction to feed. So there was like 9 robberies in like 2 weeks or something like that. But you know, my lifestyle made it an attractive place to go. And that, you know, and I was hardly ever there, so it was an easy target. Even though I had neighbors warn me that they were making plans. At that time, I thought, well, no one's going to do that because of who I was in my past, and, you know, the reputation I had, and, you know, I was told I was protected, not to worry about it, and all that kind of stuff. It still happened. You know, and, you know, the greatest thing in my divorce was our storage unit burnt down. So there was no squabbling over stuff. It was all gone. And so, you know, you can look at it from you know, what am I gaining from a loss? You know, as you were saying, people that's part of gratitude. That's part of receiving the hard lesson. Is there's a treasure in here. Thank you for this difficulty, even if it's to teach me perseverance, resilience, forgiveness, patience, understanding, my personal strength, you know, those types of things, because that is what we're sharpening as individuals, and then as a collective, because people can see, you know, people can see the grace that you hold for other people, or the patience or the understanding, and they're like, I could never do that. And it's like, well, you can. It's just a choice and a practice. Just like anything else, we look at people that work 60, 70, 80 hours a week and say, there's no way I would do that. Well, when you're living your purpose and your passion, it might not feel like that. That you have to do that much. I mean, I know you probably put those amount of hours in based on your businesses and taking care of the horses and all the things you do. That's dedication, because you live a life of passion. And the only way that you were able to do that was to let go of, I don't feel like it.
Yeah. You're not kidding. You know, that's the truth. Chris. Yeah.
Huh?
Get out of my head. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Me personally, that is a killer. Like, I know I need to go do, I know I want to go do these things, but man, I don't feel like it right now. I just, I want to go do this, or I'd rather just, relax and be comfortable, or whatever it is, and that's I think the magic of truly letting go is letting go of our own BS. Years ago when I started the coaching industry, I used to say, it's interesting how belief system and bullshit have the same abbreviations, because they both will fertilize your dreams or your nightmares. It just depends on how you use it. And that's what we're getting at least from my perspective, is getting over yourself, letting go of that inner conflict, shame, and it comes from our subconscious thoughts. And for me, I had to learn to be able to observe my thoughts without reacting. I needed to feel my emotions without reacting. Because once I became aware of where I was, I almost immediately was able to transmute them if they weren't in the highest vibration of how I wanted to feel. Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about, presence. And it's like, you walk up to that mud puddle, are you going to cuss at the mud puddle for being there, or are you just going to step around it? That's my version of it. But, he said something a lot more eloquent, but it fell out of my ear once I started going through it, or are you going to go splash through it and be a kid, and, everybody tell you how crazy you are. Whatever, man, it's your life. What's that? You there, Larkin? Okay. You just got super surprised look on your face, so.
I'm here, Chris. I just wanted you to keep talking because I had to pause something on a YouTube. And so I had to put on mute so everyone didn't hear my old broadcast.
I got you. Like, I just saw a surprised face. I'm like, oh, did I spark something? What happened?
Here for a minute.
Yeah, no worries. But I mean, and letting go of the expectation that we should be anywhere than where we are. I think that's a great one to let go of. There's a reason that we are all in this place where we're at in this time, as an individual and as a collective. And how do we grow beyond that? And that's where we come together in unity through our differences. I mean, the beautiful thing about, going to these sacred ceremonies, like Larkin said, in the native and, all these different lineages, that I haven't really been to many that I'm like, oh, this isn't, good. Even if it was a little dark, in my younger youth, but, is the diversity of people coming together for a common cause. And when we can come together for a cause beyond ourselves, we all benefit by being able to contribute, and that energy that we contribute creates a better outcome. And that's why I believe that we have to be cautious of how we're consuming in each and every day. And I'm not just talking food, but consuming. What music are you listening to? What are you feeding yourself? You know, you know, at night, are you watching the news? Are you all these various different things? Because unless you're getting a diverse source of information, and even a diverse source of information isn't still going to give you the whole truth because you weren't there to experience it. But when somebody shares just one polarity of a story, one perspective, and they just keep saying it over and over and over and over and over and over and over, what they're literally doing is rewriting your brain and your neural connections. And so a lot of the habits that we need to give up, I believe, as a humanity, is a lot of this information that's based on outside things that we have absolutely no control over. And really get back to the roots of community. Because we all are here to be caretakers of ourselves and each other. And over the last few hundred years, we've been conditioned to look out for ourselves first. And as I said earlier, the world's going to go on without you. So take care of yourself, of course, but it's not about you. It's about what you leave after you go. Because if we were to really make it hard to live on this planet, just for an example, like we kill off all the other sentient beings, all the other animals, we pollute the soils and the waters to where we can't grow plants right away, the human species will die and the planet will then regenerate. And it's done this several times. Science can prove it. Whether humans are there or not, that's a whole controversial thing. And I think Larkin got froze out. So, oh.
No, I'm right here.
Okay. So what's that?
I'm right here.
Okay. So, the part of letting go is, for me, the call to action that I would say is let go of the need to be better than anyone else and just focus on being the best version of yourself. What does that mean? You have to ask yourself, because that's where the truth comes from. That's where you quit separating yourself and stop living up to the expectations. Oh, Larkin dropped her feed of the society, the education system, the commercial marketing, the parental authoritarians, all those different things. Because as long as you're moving in integrity, doing your best each and every day to cause the least amount of harm to yourself and everything outside of you, you are going to live a very harmonious life. And a very balanced life. And it only gets better the more you can move through challenge and resistance. And that's why I started this podcast by challenging, make sure you're responsible, accountability, all those things come first before using, I just have to let you go because it's too difficult. I have to let this go because it's too hard. Because I did that in my youth. I let go of different practices and things because it was challenging, and I know my dad for the most of my years called me a quitter, and and I was just like, no, it just wasn't for me. And I was always looking for new things to find myself, find the things that interested me, not based on what they said I should do, or how I was supposed to live. And I'm so grateful that I've done that most of my life, because what I didn't realize up till really this year, at Sundance, it was like a full circle for me. The strength and resilience that everybody used to see in me, I got to see it for myself. I got to see how much things had shifted for me by doing those things, and just learning to be grateful for what is, and allow what is to come to happen. And the more we can appreciate what we have, the less need we have for things outside of ourselves, and the more patience and grace and understanding we can have with ourselves and other people. And we won't tend to trip over our little petty mistakes, or beat ourselves up or beat ourselves down to where we demotivate ourselves, and say, oh, I don't feel like it today. Um, you know, that's pretty much all I have to say on it. The download kind of stopped. So,
It's brilliant. I think it's very well said, Chris. And, and Bill, thank you for your comment. What a great perspective. It is a good perspective because, guys, just to kind of, I couldn't have said it any better, Chris. I think it's important that, one of the things Chris is getting at is, that there's a relationship between our individuality and our collectiveness. And our collectiveness will be the result of how we are as individuals, and our individuality will be affected by our collective. And so we're constantly responding to both, right? So it's, Chris in his coaching focuses so much on the community aspects. I focus so much on the individual aspects, and both are very important because it is all those individuals and how you think and what you do and how you see yourself as a part of the community that makes a big difference. So even if you're an introvert, and no one believes I am, but I am. Even if you're an introvert like me and you'd rather go home and do your writing and your reading and you're taking care of the yard and the garden and things like that, it doesn't mean that you have to be out there with other people all the time. It means exactly what you were saying before, Chris. When you wake up in the morning, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, do you ask yourself, how can I be the best version of me today? Mm-hmm. And, another thing, Chris, you reminded me of is so much of our depression and feeling sorry for ourselves comes from the fact that our society is so focused on me as an individual. Mm-hmm. We forget about everybody else, and we could have a whole topic just on this. Just look at the way people are driving. I was at a Kroger's a couple of years ago, and the area of the parking lot where I parked, there was a hill. And as I was getting out of my car to go in, this guy, probably in his 50s, it's not like he was a young, stupid kid. He loaded his car up. He turned around. I watched him get a big smile on his face. He got this grin. And he scanned the cars. And I didn't realize at the time he was trying to decide which car he was going to target with his cart. And then he proceeded to shove his cart as hard as he could and laugh with delight as it rolled down the hill and rammed into the back of one of the cars. So, I see little things like this all the time. Mm-hmm. And the question is, if you're a person that is, thinking, okay, I've used the last of the roll of toilet paper, so perhaps I should replace it before the next person comes in, or tell management that if they're out of toilet paper before the next person comes in. That is being both a contributing best version of yourself individual and contributing to the community. Imagine what our world would be like if we did that, if we all or most of it, even 50% of us did that. And that's something that's really kind of waned, over the past few decades. So there are aspects that we need to let go of, that we are conditioned, we are entitled to, or we deserve, or we should have. And this causes us to do dangerous things, careless things, inconsiderate things. And what we're not told in our culture and society, that many cultures are still teaching, that in Native American cultures, that was a natural way of life because they were teaching according to nature. Mm-hmm. And nature teaches this. You get what you put out. So you may not recognize it immediately, but whatever energy, thoughts, words, choices, actions you throw out there do find their way back to you. And so this is where, I invite you, as we get ready to round up today, investigate your beliefs and your perspective and your awareness of the relationship between the individual and the collective. You as an individual, you personally, and the community. What are you a taker? Are you a giver? Everybody says they're a giver. Everybody says they're a giver. Mm-hmm. Are you really?
Well, and one of the silly things, you can call it silly or however you want to look at it, but I haven't known one self-made person of what you would call significance that doesn't put their shopping cart away because they're being considerate of the effect that they have on other people. When you only focus on yourself and you only have your blinders on, you're upsetting people in ways that will prevent you from moving like you want, to achieving what you want, to manifesting what you want. Because if it's just like it's about me, then there's no reciprocity. And there's no such thing as there is such a thing as the law of attraction, right? So if everyone's focused on me, what I'm getting, and not what you're giving, that's what's stopping your manifestations. In the different ways, and it shows up in different ways. It's interesting to me when I give free sessions out, energy healing sessions or things like that. How all of a sudden my book the next couple weeks will be full with paid gigs. It's because I have faith and I'm putting that energy out forwardly and then allowing it to return naturally through the consistency of my frequency. And if I'm not doing it, as I say in school, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. So, I can't remember half the things they taught me in school because I don't use hardly any of it in my everyday life. I don't, but I do retain a lot of information that I've learned from the study of human behavior, because that has been my profession for over 20 years. And how all this affects, from the food to the thoughts to the feelings, how all these different energies impact our daily holistic well-being. As individuals, collective, the planet, all those things. So
as we take radical responsibility as individuals, which right now we're sort of doing the opposite in society. Mm-hmm. So take radical responsibility as an individual instead of blaming everyone else for the things you don't like. So most people need to make a reverse here, because we're taught and conditioned it's everybody else's fault. It wasn't your fault. Don't worry about it. Get some healing and counseling. Let's cuddle and coddle you and tell you it's okay because it wasn't your fault. Well, how about taking radical responsibility? Because when you're truly free and empowered, you're taking radical responsibility. That means even if shit happens, And it's not let's say it's not even your fault. You still need to take responsibility for the part that you had. Maybe it was responsibility for being there.
Right.
Maybe it was responsibility for your responding. It's not about fault. It's about the freedom you get with responsibility. And that's a whole different topic, because today we're talking about letting go.
Right.
But assess what it is that you as an individual can let go of to both create and manifest and change and transform for yourself individually. And then once you've done that, that's when and where and how you change the way that you are a participant in the community, right? Because it's up to you to take care of yourself as an individual in that community. And it changes when you do your work. What you need to be careful of, though, is when you get too caught up, as Chris was saying, in the what can I get out of it? How can I be first? The hell with everybody else. That type of attitude will keep you in a holding pattern that, although you may think you're getting what you want, will only lead to misery. And for all of you out there who are like feeling sorry for yourself, or you want things to change, or you can't seem to manifest what you want, or you're unhappy about something, check in. How much are you just focused on you? When we stop just caring about ourselves and what we want and what we're getting and constantly measuring that, life opens up to us. And so perhaps that's something powerful that you can let go of in order to create a shift. When Chris was saying, when he gives away free sessions and then all of a sudden his books fill up with paid sessions, that's not going to work for everyone.
Right.
Because it depends on, when Chris is doing that, he's doing it out of authentic giving. He's not doing it so that happens. And he's also doing his work, his passion. If we just jump in and say, okay, we're going to give everybody, $10 and everyone's going to give us $100 back, I'm not going to promise you that's going to work.
Right.
Okay. It's going to be about your individual habits and patterns, your alignment. Are you doing what you're passionate about? What else are you doing? There's a lot of other factors involved. But what we can tell you is that when you install first awareness of your thoughts and your habits and your feelings and your emotions are the mind and the body, you create this level of self-awareness. You can then assess, okay, are you being the best version of you today? And really, that's your only job, is to be the best version of you today. And each day that might require something new and different. But as you go about that and you make that a habit, and letting go will always be a part of that, because you're going to find there's things you have to let go of. Maybe it's just the need to win a conversation with someone, or the need to have the last word, or the need to get on social media. Okay, whatever it is, find that out for yourself. Journal about it. Meditate, take walks, think about it, toss it out there, and then choose one thing, just one thing each day, and make a shift. And start making that a pattern and see the differences that it can make for you. So, great topic, guys. It's we don't often talk about letting go, and it's a very broad topic, and you guys have to figure out where that path leads you.
Mm-hmm.
There's Jasper.
All right. Other one's not there?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to the show, or the live or the rebroadcast. You can find us on the Enhance Your World show on Facebook and YouTube. Of course,
yes,
we all subscribe. You can find us also on our personal pages and all that as well. So appreciate your time. Thank you for everything you are, everything you do, and everything you choose to be. The world would not be the same without you. So thank you for that. And we'll see you next week on Tuesday at noon.
Bill,
Bye.
thank you for tuning in. I want to quick mention, guys, if you have not seen the replay of the prayer sphere, please find it on our pages and the YouTube page. You might find that very interesting. We have a program that we're working on, and there's a lot of goodies in that prayer sphere event that we had last week. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Larkin. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.